There we go.
Great.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's get going. Welcome to today's Rubin Science Assembly. We're just going to do 5 minutes of announcements, and then today's presentation will be on citizen science with the Rubin Observatory by Clare Higgs, who is here with us today. And we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So for announcements, that Rubin Community Workshop 2025 is coming up at the end of July. It's fully hybrid, so you can register for virtual, which is free, or in person, for which there's a 250 limit, but registration is still open. There's still space at the hotel. There is still poster space. So you can see the presenter information page in the website. If you were thinking about coming, it's still a possibility. As for upcoming Rubin Science Assemblies, next week is a holiday in the US, so there won't be one on the Thursday. And then the week after that, we're just going to do a little drop-in, get your RSP account set up. So if you haven't taken any steps to get a Rubin Science Platform account yet, this is going to be for those people. So it's not really a tutorial or anything. It's literally just the steps to get yourself set up and learn how to log in. Reminder that Data Preview 1 release date is going to be Monday, June 30th, and that is also going to be the week of the Rubin Data Academy. The website is here. That is fully virtual. There's 2 time slots, morning and evening, trying to hit a global audience. And we do a lot of repetitive sessions, so you don't have to worry about making sure that you can attend at a certain time. Lots of options, lots of repeats. It's drop-in. There's no registration. It's the same Zoom link as what got you here, so pretty casual, and everyone is welcome for that.
Before you continue, Melissa, I think on the previous slide, you intended that to say June 26th, not July 26th for the next drop-in session.
Yep, yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, because it is the Thursday immediately before the Data Academy, so people can get their accounts set up for the Data Academy.
Yeah, not next week, but the week after.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Yes, we want your accounts set up before the data release. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah. And then for the Rubin first look, unveiling the first images from LSST-CAM, the big camera from Rubin, that is happening on Monday, June 23rd. There's going to be a live stream of the official press conference in Washington, D.C. that starts at 11 a.m. Eastern. And there are watch parties being set up and hosted around the world. So you can go and find one of those to attend. I think there's still time to put a watch party together yourself. I'm going to pop the link to the slides in the chat because yeah. Oh, okay. Go to rubinobservatory.org and you'll find out about the watch parties. And it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to just relaxing and having a party that day. As a reminder, you do have a users committee. The users committee is charged with soliciting feedback from the community about Rubin data products and the science platform. They recommend improvements in their twice-yearly reports, and they're always interested to hear from users. How it's going? Can you do your science with the Rubin science platform? What do you struggle with? What do you need? They've got a variety of ways for you to contact them, so please do. And as another reminder that the Link Frameworks team also hosts office hours that are also Thursdays, and they're right after this one. So you can drop in and talk about all the very cool software that they are developing and get help with using it. And that's it for the announcements. I'm going to stop sharing. My Zoom chat is still open, so if you had questions about those announcements, just pop them in the Zoom chat. And otherwise, we'll let Claire, our EPO scientist, take over.
Awesome. Okay, I will share. Is that showing up okay?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so I am pleased to give a little talk about citizen science with Rubin and what are we thinking about that today? So if I haven't met you yet, my name is Clare Higgs. I am the astronomer on the education and public outreach team for Rubin, and one of the things that I work on is supporting citizen science with Rubin. So to start, the Rubin SISAI team is a multifaceted team. It involves people from the education and public outreach side, like myself, folks from CST and doing scientist engagement, as well as the Zooniverse as an in-kind partner, of course, with support and advice from many others in the Rubin community. So when I refer to the SISAI team, this is kind of the collaboration of folks that I'm referring to. And starting off just with this high level, broad stroke, citizen science with Rubin, what are we thinking? And effectively, what we're trying to do is support having tools and a community for Rubin Observatory to create successful projects for the science community and engaging, rewarding projects for the public to get involved in. And so we as a SISI team are ready to help you make projects. So one thing that's very important is that this SISI team that I'm talking about is not directly running individual citizen science projects. That's not the plan. The scope and depth and breadth of science coming from Rubin is, as we all know, very broad and more than one little team can handle. Instead, we are helping our amazing science community to make really successful projects. And so why we're doing this, we are trying to support scientists in making projects, so reducing the effort required to start and maintain a project. From the education and public outreach perspective, we really want to reach a broad audience and leverage our mission and priorities in having a lot of people in the world excited about Rubin. And one of the inherent things is Rubin's data volume challenges. I put challenges in quotes because it's a good problem to have, that of course we have a ton of amazing data. And this means that we want to maintain public interest and reduce the resources and kind of set up thought for project leads. So just expanding on this third point a little bit. So from the education and public outreach team's perspective, the Rubin's data is inherently inaccessible to the public. So overarchingly, what we do is try and create online avenues to make the public be able to appreciate and understand and enjoy Rubin data. And so thinking about citizen science specifically, Rubin data is an amazing place to do citizen science. There's going to be so much to discover in so many different fields. There's all these unknown unknowns, which citizen science is amazing at finding. But we do need to think about it. There's this large data volume, so the challenge for project leads to work with this data volume, we have to take into consideration. It's a decade-long survey, and of course, how much science coming after that, and volunteers' engagement and time are finite. And so we want to make sure that we respect the time that volunteers put into classifying data on citizen science. And we communicate how their efforts are contributing to science to have this really positive feedback loop of people wanting to do this. And we also want to expand the volunteer community, which is part of EPO's goal, but also because of the large data set, we need volunteers. We need volunteers who keep coming back and keep come along for the whole survey. So just as our SISAI team is multifaceted, who we're doing this for is multifaceted. So as I've kind of just summarized here, these are tools for our scientists. These are ways for educators and facilitators to bring Rubin into the community. And for the public, it's a chance to be part of the scientific process and the discovery process, which I think is a really valuable thing to add. So how are we planning to achieve all of this? We have a couple of goals to kind of facilitate this straightforward project development for leads and to nurture this dedicated community of volunteers. We're doing that in partnership with the Zooniverse. I'm sure most people are familiar with the Zooniverse, but if not, just the Zooniverse is a well-known and well-established citizen science platform. It has a great interface for the public to participate in projects. It has lots of tools and resources and has really it's really been an amazing place to do citizen science for I think it's since about 2009, so it's been around for a long time. One thing to note is the Zooniverse is not strictly astronomy. There's tons of projects that are astronomy, but there's also biology ones of like looking at animals in the Serengeti. There's classifying handwriting data. There is like looking at cell types in biology. So it's this really, really kind of multifaceted platform for which astronomy projects are one part of, and we anticipate that Rubin projects will be a big part of future astronomy projects on their platform. And so, yeah, to achieve this goal together, we have a couple different resources that we've been building. And I'll break these down in the next couple slides, but briefly, we have templates, documentation, and support from our team. We have this pipeline, and we have some tutorial notebooks available for use. So just starting off with documentation. So the documentation lives at citizen-science.lsst.io. And I will note there's more documentation coming soon, perhaps even later today, when I get a few more things added. But this is hopefully the place to start when you're thinking about citizen science projects, specifically with Rubin data. The Zooniverse itself also has some great documentation on their project builder pages and things like that about building projects as well in general. But this information hopefully is the kind of Rubin specific connection about how to use these tools and everything together. There are a couple little sections that I want to point out in particular. So the one at the top there is a data policy section. So of course, projects using Rubin data have to agree with Rubin's data policies, and there's no kind of exceptions from there. But this page hopefully breaks down a little bit of how to understand how to do citizen science and make data visible to the public, but in a way that is in accordance with the data policies that Rubin has. And so hopefully that just breaks it down a little bit. And of course, the team is happy to discuss things that are specific to different project types. The second section that I'd like to mention here is this existing project catalog, which currently is quite short, but I really hope starts to grow as soon as we have projects launching soon. And this section is a place where we are hoping to list projects that are existing and active on Zooniverse, that have happened on Zooniverse, as well as ones that are in development and ready for launch. And so one thing that is really important here is this is absolutely not intended to discourage anyone from starting a project, but it is a place where people can see what is going on and find places to collaborate where possible, and also perhaps see what data might have already been classified that perhaps is useful. So we're trying to create this place where you can have an overview of the Rubin projects that exist. You can see these projects on the Zooniverse platform, and we are creating an organization page, which I'll mention in a minute as well, where you can see projects. However, it's a little bit hard to see past projects and projects that are about to launch. And so this page is intended to kind of capture that a little bit more completely together. And so, yeah, we really encourage people to let us know what they're thinking so we can keep this up to date, but also that we encourage people to check this such that people don't put in a ton of effort into developing a project only to find out there's one that was just waiting in the wings about to launch at the same time. So trying to keep everybody valuing everybody's effort there. And the third section that I just want to point out that is really coming soon is some more resources from the CST team about advice using machine learning and things like that. So there's hopefully a lot of pages, a lot of information here, and in concert with the Zooniverse pages that already exist on how to do this. One other aspect of the collaboration with Zooniverse is we have a kind of streamlined project review and launch where we're collaborating with the Zooniverse to do that. And so the intention is to make it easier to launch a project, not to make it harder with these kind of resources in our collaboration. So the pipeline that we have, so we have a Rubin SISAI software package that allows you to send data straight from the Rubin Science Platform to the Education Data Center, the EDC, and then obviously to your Zooniverse project. So the data storage is provided in the EDC to host your data there. And yeah, there's notebooks that are described and linked on the documentation pages. One thing that I want to note is we have created a 100 object limit for initially using these notebooks. Of course, 100 objects is not sufficient to do a citizen science project, but this is simply intended to be a little bit of a guardrail as someone is starting to think about a project and, you know, putting some ideas around, thinking about how to put things together. And so creating this kind of sandbox environment that hopefully people feel comfortable using the notebooks as they're learning. This limit is something that our team lifts as soon as you feel ready and you feel that you've kind of got your project kind of together. One of the intentions here is to make sure that as you're brainstorming and developing your project, that you don't accidentally send data that is not appropriate to show to the public and send a ton of data. So it's intended just to be a guardrail, but not a limitation. This is something that the SISAI team is ready to lift as soon as a project team is feeling happy with their development. And so the notebook tutorials, just breaking down kind of what we've got there. We've got a couple examples. So there's a basic notebook, which shows you how to send PNG cutouts to the Zooniverse. We have a more complex example, which is just demonstrating how to use some of the tools that are on the Zooniverse side. So it shows how to use a flipbook. A flipbook is multiple images of the same object displayed. So I don't know if you wanted to show a galaxy in multiple bands or, you know, with different stretches or something like that. You could use this kind of flipbook tool. We have also added a classification aggregation example. So once your project has been classified volunteers on the Zooniverse, you need to retrieve those classifications and also aggregate them into some metrics that are appropriate. And so we have an example on how to do that in a kind of a simple way, actually using two different methods as a kind of starting point. And we have a couple more in development, including using the alert stream and the ability to ingest tabular data to display as a light curve on the Zooniverse side. All of these notebooks are not intended to be science ready by any means. They're more intended to be launching points for different kind of data types and data styles that you might want to do with a citizen science notebook. We recorded a demo of the basic notebook a little while ago, but it's on rubinobservatory.org in the For Scientists pages if you are curious about some of the details. And again, there's a bit of a description on the documentation pages. One of the other things we're trying to consider is to reduce the kind of overhead of starting a project. Is we've included things like this command, which allows you to create a Zooniverse project from a template. And we have a Rubin project template that you are welcome to use. It's fully editable, but it would include kind of general information about Rubin, social media, connections to some education resources, and kind of supports this community of projects. So the idea being that not everybody has to include a description of what Rubin is if you don't want to, but this is of course something we're not requiring anyone to use, but it's simply an option. So everything I've mentioned there hopefully supports this first goal of facilitating easy and straightforward project development and reducing the challenges for project leads. And I'm going to talk now a little bit about the second goal, about nurturing this community of volunteers, highlighting the science, and inviting more participation. So we have a couple thoughts on this front. So one, kind of come back to the theme I touched on earlier of respecting the effort and time from volunteers. And so there's a couple things we want to keep in mind for this, and that's minimizing the project overlap. So I mentioned that existing projects table. Again, I want to emphasize that this is not meant to discourage anyone from doing a project by any means, but also just making people aware of what the landscape of the projects that are out there and perhaps encourage collaboration where that makes sense. To put together. So minimizing the project overlap, we're not asking people to classify the same data multiple times. Also, another important thing to note is across all citizen science projects, the motivation of volunteers is strongly wanting to contribute to scientific research. That comes up a fair amount. And so one of the places the EPO team is ready to support the projects is to communicate how their efforts in citizen science are supporting to scientific research. And so supporting science teams in doing that and creating ways that are hopefully fairly straightforward to communicate back to volunteers about what the impact of their classifications is having and create that really strong positive feedback loop that people want to keep doing more because they're seeing what's coming out of it. We have this Rubin organization page, which I'll show in a second, and also connections to our other education and public outreach initiatives as well. So the community page, I have an example here that obviously is not Rubin's one because that's not quite live yet in the fact that we don't have projects yet. But this one is Notes from Nature. So this is a collaboration of natural history museums. And you can see this page shows a bunch of active projects across a broad variety of science topics altogether, as well as paused and finished projects together. And so we're creating this page, and so we can hopefully have a strong community of volunteers. I'll be monitoring some stats and some interest using the group engagement tools, which will hopefully create this sense of accomplishment amongst this community of volunteers that the EPO team will look after. But it also allows us to collectively promote all the projects together. And so hopefully we can really leverage some of the education and public outreach communication strategies to promote all projects. But one of the other aspects, which I'm really hopeful that this community organization pages will encourage, is supporting engagement regardless of project cadence. So just to give some context, different projects will likely have different cadences where they get new data. So if you have a project that is based on data coming from the alert stream, perhaps it will have like a weekly or bi-weekly or something upload of data or something like that, versus if you have a project that's looking at COAD images coming out of the data release, that's likely to have an annual kind of refresh of data. And we want to make sure that when we have volunteers come to the project, there's always something fun and active and ready to engage them. And so hopefully by creating these pages together, we can make sure that volunteers always find something fun and exciting to do, and we can keep that interest and we can share that across projects and hopefully support projects that perhaps have very perhaps intermittent data uploads or projects that have a huge amount of data or something like that. So really creating this strong community. Okay, and then on other fronts, we have the connection to the other EPO initiatives, which we can leverage. So our social media and web presence, of course, we can promote citizen science there. We're also trying to explain what Rubin is for the public and get that excitement level up on many fronts. One final connection I want to mention that I'm actually really excited about is connecting to our formal education program. So the education part of our EPO team has been working on these education investigations. So they're targeted at like 8th grade through first year university. And the idea is they bring Rubin data into the classroom for a specific science topic. These 6 down here are some of them that have been launched already. Of course, they don't use Rubin data yet. They are used real data from other surveys that's kind of close-ish to Rubin data currently, but of course we'll be transitioning these as soon as possible. And the idea is to bring, Rubin data into the classroom, but the connections with citizen sciences can be a real win-win because they, of course, provide more volunteers for a project, help with classifications, but also provide a lot of teacher support. for educators who might not be super comfortable talking about Rubin, there's a lot of resources here so they can kind of piggyback on each other and be successful. And so this plot, I apologize, is actually a little bit out of date already, but it still makes the point of these are Rubin, sorry, Zooniverse volunteers, and these are educators that have participated in workshops using these education investigations, and there's a lot of enthusiasm, and it's very global, and so I think tapping into these educators will be a lot more volunteers. And particularly, I'm excited about South America, which I feel like there's a lot of volunteers waiting in the wings there. I think I'm looking forward to it. And just as a kind of little thought exercise, putting this all together, I wanted to just think of the scale of Rubin data. And so here's just a toy example of the fact that we know that Rubin should detect about 20 billion galaxies. If you looked at the total number of classifications and all the projects in all of Zooniverse, that's about 4% of Rubin's galaxies. Now, of course, there are many ways to make this far more reasonable, but it shows both two sides of the coin. One, Rubin has a lot of galaxies, and two, that there's a lot of classifications that have been done on the Zooniverse, and there's a lot of enthusiasm from the public to participate. Another way of thinking about it, so Galaxy Zoo classified almost 1 million galaxies, the original Galaxy Zoo, which is just a tiny, tiny fraction. And of course, as a reality check, with machine learning and there are many tools in which we can do better than just visually looking at all Rubin's galaxies, particularly building on the legacy of Galaxy Zoo. But it does kind of create this challenge of the fact there's a lot of data coming, but there's also a lot of enthusiasm from the public, and we're really looking forward to bringing the amazing projects coming out of our community and getting a really strong volunteer base. And so I've put my contact information there. We have some information on the 4 scientists pages there, and there's also these documentation pages that I mentioned. And so I realize I think I spoke a little quickly, and so flew through that. But lots of time for discussion if anyone wants me to dive into anything in more detail.
Great. Thank you, Claire. Round of applause for Claire. Yeah, and the floor is open for questions. You can just unmute, you can raise your hand, and you can use the Zoom chat.
I see Phil's hand then.
Hi, Claire. Thanks a lot. This is really nice overview. It's pretty exciting times. Just wondering about your what you're expecting in terms of projects. I mean, it's hard to sort of foresee, right? There's a lot of uncertainty as to what people will. But what's your sort of best guess at the kind of the number of projects that you might see coming through, what sizes they might be? How are you thinking about what things might look like in, say, 2 years' time?
Yeah, that really is the impossible question, and so of course collaborate really closely with Chris Lintott at Zooniverse, and he and I have been discussing this ad nauseum for a while. I think it's a really hard one to estimate. There are a number of projects that we know have kind of expressed some enthusiasm. And so, particularly for early science projects, we have a few that on the order of 3 plus or minus a couple that are definitely kind of ready to go right away. But estimating when projects launch gets a little bit hard. And so I do think that yeah, I don't have a great number. I think it's the short answer. And I think we need to be aware of the having coordination amongst projects so we don't try and launch 10 projects at once. And so that's, again, one of the things we're thinking about collaborating. But I think on the order of 10 projects a year or 10 big projects is probably kind of the ballpark where I'm thinking. Again, one other consideration is that not all projects like to be fully live and public. So a lot of what I've been talking about now is projects that are kind of launched for the public. But there is also interest for some projects to kind of keep something internal to their science team. And so I think that there's probably likely another 10 projects that are probably smaller, requiring less volunteers that will not be public. So gonna go in that kind of ballpark. Sorry, it's a very hard question, and that was a very waffly answer.
No, that I'm at home with the uncertainty, Claire. No worries.
Perfect.
Just to give us a sense of scale, you mentioned 10 big projects, 10 smaller ones. What do you have in your mind as a big project in this sense?
Oh, so I think that is a very flexible term depending on the data type. Are you like thinking of like how many objects are in there?
Yes.
Oof. I'm gonna decline to answer that one to just I have to check kind of where we were thinking ballpark, but I think it is a bit different depending on if their project that perhaps has using some of the machine learning tools that Zooniverse has, so they have like kind of human in the loop tools that they've developed, and if it's a project like that, then it could be a much larger project than perhaps one that is requiring a lot of has quite a complex workflow. So I think it's a hugely varied number. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is probably what I had in mind when I said exciting times. I mean, just uncertainty on, orders of magnitude of how big these things.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, or anyone want to share maybe some ideas that they're thinking about for citizen science projects?
Can I ask a little bit more about the sort of workflow of like, so I have an idea, I want to start a project and say, I'm gonna need whatever 100,000, a million, 10 million cut out images. Are the tools to do that meant to be like LSST science pipelines or citizen science tooling?
So I the citizen science stuff is most intended to be the connection between the RSP and the Zooniverse. And so effectively, the idea being that you use all the amazing tools and resources and tutorials and everything that's in the pipelines in the RSP to do whatever you need to do to make that data look as you want to display it to the public. So, if it's making color image and or cutouts and things like that. And so we've tried to include some examples of that in our notebooks, and I will say that is one area that we are still working hard on trying to get all that functionality. But yeah, the idea is that you use all the tools that already exist there, and then the pipeline is simply allows you to transfer the data without having to download and then try and upload it to the Zooniverse. So we have that direct connection there and back. And yeah, and then it can store it securely in the EDC as well. So the data storage side of things is taken care of.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I could say something about Rubin comet catchers if you're wanting an idea of a product that's coming.
Please do, Colin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're launching Rubin comet catchers. The plan is June 30th as well, we shall see. And we're planning on having, when things are actually live and more data is available, roughly 20 to 100,000 images being looked at by volunteers every month. And so that the premise is they just look at images of known asteroids and minor planets and say, do you see a tail or not? This is a sister project to my Active Asteroids Citizen Science project. And so this will, be pre-screened by some AI that will help in the future so that they're not having to dig through as many. your questions about other capabilities for doing the cutouts there, etc. Is a very important question. We have our own tooling to do this stuff, but that is our plan, and we're pretty excited about it.
I'm also pretty excited about it. And that'll be great. I think Comic Catchers might be the first one to launch. And so yeah, it would be really exciting to yeah, have the public see that and also yeah, do some science there. Yeah, and one thing that I will note is a lot of the things that I have mentioned are probably not useful to every project. And so we've been trying to make tools and resources that are kind of general and flexible, but are entirely aware that probably every individual citizen science project is quite unique. And so there isn't necessarily a requirement that you have to kind of fit into a box of how we're doing this. But I think the primary thing is we'd love for any scientist wanting to do a citizen science project that involves Rubin data in any way, shape, or form to let us know so that we can first off promote it and support it, but secondly, find the tools that we might have that might be useful and make those available. So yeah, that's the kind of primary thing. Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, it's come up a couple of times. I think the connection between Rubin citizen science and AI for science is really interesting, and a great opportunity for us in the EPO team to be talking to the general public about responsible use of powerful AI for science. And so I'm just wondering if you could say a little bit about how you're thinking of talking about AI and the connections between the citizen science project and the AI analysis that the project leads will also be interested in. How you're thinking about talking about that to the citizens as a way of kind of informing them about AI for science.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting point because I think there is definitely a wrong way to do it. And I think the wrong way to do it is say, hey, we'd like you to classify this data so that we don't need you anymore. And I think that has been yeah, that's absolutely the opposite kind of effective way. But Zooniverse has been kind of working on this in a couple different ways and showing, basically really clearly demonstrating the ways that these two techniques are complementary. So one, being very open about the fact that is this a project that uses AI or machine learning in some way, making sure you communicate that to volunteers, but also communicate why you need their input as well, and just making sure that the both sides is very clear. So I think being careful we don't want to not mention machine learning when it's being used. And I think it is quite broadly used in a lot of projects. And I think that will be almost entirely true for Rubin projects. So yeah, making sure we're open about the fact that there is some machine learning being used, but also being very positive about kind of how having human in the loop type analysis and things like that is really important. And there's some fun examples. There's Galaxy Zoo Weird and Wonderful, which highlights things that look weird or wonderful out of SCSS data, and that's an example where you can you're highlighting where the kind of creative side of machine learning isn't as strong, and humans are very effective. And yeah, other ones where there's oh shoot, completely blank on the name. Another project where you're essentially building the training set, but you're refining the training set and being really open about how that contribution is good. But this is also another place where I think our EPO team wants to create some resources when we have strong examples from projects that we can talk about this in general. And so each science team doesn't have to be responsible for explaining this. They can point to these kind of general resources where applicable, where it makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, when we started doing space warps, over 10 years ago now, we sort of tried to pitch it as beat the robots. I think these days we're seeing a much more collaborative picture between between us and the robots. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, no, and I think, and emphasizing that collaboration, and also emphasizing, I think it just is a part of a kind of general education thing to emphasize the things that, machine learning isn't the all powerful. There are ways that, we can refine and make things better, and so really emphasizing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm always happy to chat if anyone has ideas and suggestions about how to refine this. Also really looking forward to changing all of this from strictly future tense to present tense in the near future as there's DP1 is available, and yeah, having comet catchers as our strong pathfinder is it's a really exciting time.
Yeah, I'm excited. I want to catch a comet. Yeah, I like to play as a citizen.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, Zooniverse is fun. Any final questions, comments, thoughts about citizen science?
And I will, my final thing I just want to say is all of this is very much under development. I think we're at kind of V0 for all of this stuff, and we're really looking forward to, yeah, seeing what the need is and then growing with that. So the more feedback and communication we get from the community, the better. It's awesome.
Wonderful. Okay, we can thank Claire again. Thanks for being here, Claire. Thanks for that presentation. Yeah, looking forward to it. Oh, Christina, can you stop recording for us? Can't do it.